Well, welcome once again to the old Cow Report, and of course, cowreport.com, and I'm your host, Chuck Lee, and with me, coming to you live from the downtown beautiful Emporium and Arena, with me is my Eau Claire political analyst, Dwayne Peterson. Welcome to the program, Dwayne.
Thank you, Chuck.
Glad to see you again.
Glad
You're all
to be here.
dressed up. You either went to a funeral or a wedding.
Neither one.
All right. What happened?
Well, I just thought I'd bring a new image.
Running for office or something?
Yes, I am.
All right. Well, as usual, boy, oh boy, do we have a lot to talk about. And tonight is no exception. And Roy will be putting up the phone numbers on the screen for those who would like to call in and talk about any issues in particular that have happened since we were on the show last time. There's been another murder since we were on the program last time, and there's been another couple of armed robberies.
Yep.
And they've got the supposed killer of the Marquardt woman. Supposedly his son did it. At least that's what they're painting a pretty good picture over there in the Eau Claire County Court this morning, and the newspapers and everybody is pretty much pointing a finger at the kid. I don't think he can get a fair trial now in this area.
I don't think he could either.
After all that production. But they're kind of talking about that for a minute here. They're kind of stretching things a little bit there when they're saying that this kid was in possession of a .22 because they found a gun at his parents' cabin up at Fairchild.
Mm-hmm.
And they found 3 dead dogs up there.
Yep.
But he wasn't in possession of any of that stuff.
From what I heard, that they found him with the .22 rifle, but
They found the .22 rifle
in the cabin.
and the dead dogs last week before he was even back up here. He was down in Florida partying.
That's what why they're saying that they probably can't bring till he finds a red car, some kind of red car they're looking for. Till they find that, they can't really bring the murder charges against him.
Well, that,
He
like
might
I
have
say,
been in
those
Florida when it happened.
those other charges are pretty flimsy. They can't prove. They're suggesting that he killed the dogs and that was his .22, but it's his parents' cabin, from what I understand.
Right.
So it's actually his parents' property up there.
It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Now, a couple of days before that murder up there was a rural house up there. The front door was kicked in and several guns were stolen. Now, I don't know if the cops have put that together and did this kid kick in the door, steal those guns, and kill his mother with one of the 9mm. It didn't say what kind of guns were stolen out of this house, but it said several guns were. The front door was kicked in. It was a quick robbery. It was up somewhere in the rural area of Chippewa County, just a couple of days before the murder up there. And that could possibly be the murder weapon that he used. And I'm sure that they're looking at this kid to see if he matches up with any of the armed robberies that were going on around this area.
Oh, I'm sure they are too.
Because it sounds like the kid was having some serious problems if he actually did kill his mother. Now, on the other hand, they said he's a flight risk, so they're putting him on a $100,000 bail.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, he drove all the way to Florida right after he supposedly killed his mother, then drove all the way back up here. If he was a flight risk, and looking at it from a lawyer's perspective, if he was a risk and he actually killed his mother, why did he drive all the way back up here, right back into the arms of the law?
Exactly.
You know?
Doesn't make sense. That's why they're looking for that red car.
There could possibly be somebody else involved that actually pulled the trigger.
Possibly.
Well, as usual, we're going to be taking calls tonight, and the number is flashing across the screen there, and you'll be able to call in, and we want to talk a little bit about this stupid census that's coming up. Now, the INS, that's the Immigration and Naturalization Service, they're the ones that are supposedly supposed to keep our borders from being overrun by every nationality under the sun except Americans. And we're under an invasion here. We're in a civil war. We're being invaded from the north, south, east, and west by every nationality and every country underneath the sun: Chinese, Japanese, Cubans, Mexicans, Russians, Europeans, South Americans, Africans, anybody that can get to our shores. We're being invaded, and They keep hiring a few more INS agents. But now they've come out and said, we want all you illegal aliens and all you illegal Mexicans that are hiding out in Minneapolis and Chicago and all over the country, we want you to go ahead and fill out your census form so we can know where you're at so we can come and pick you up.
Right.
Now, that's about the stupidest thing I ever heard of. If you're an illegal alien up here, or if you're in another country, say you're up in Canada and they got a census up there, would you fill out a stupid form telling them right where you're at?
I don't think so.
Anybody with any sense at all is not going to fill this out and say, yeah, I'm an illegal alien, I don't belong in the United States, come and get me, here's my address and phone number. And there's 4 more hiding underneath the bed. We all work down there at the chicken factory in Arcadia on the midnight shift, all 300 of us. Just watch them scramble down there now that I let the chicken out of the fox out of the hen house down there. They've already raided that place a couple times. So it wasn't, so here, I mean, they built this thing up. They've spent probably $1 billion on this thing, spending hundreds of millions of dollars. First, I got this letter from the census. And it says, about 1 week from now, you will receive a U.S. Census 2000 form in the mail. Blah, 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 a whole page, 2 pages of it. And of course, it's in Spanish and every other language because we got so many illegal aliens that want to read that. So then I got the census form a week later. And I haven't even opened that yet. But it says, U.S. Census form enclosed, your response is required by law. So until I send this in, I'm breaking the law. So then I get a postcard. I wonder how many hundreds of millions of these they sent out. This one says, a few days ago, you should have received a U.S. Census form. It was sent to your address as part of our effort to conduct the most accurate census possible. Well, that's a bunch of baloney right there because Clinton wanted to average. He didn't want to count each one person. He didn't want to go to a household and say, there's 7 people in this house, 12 in that house, 47 Mexicans hiding under the bed in this house, 3 Cubans in this house. What he wanted to just average out and said, oh, there's about, per block, there's about 20 illegal aliens. That's what he wanted to do. He just wanted to average it out over the whole country. So now they're saying it's going to be the most accurate census possible. If it is the most accurate census possible, it's because the Republican Party stuck the Democrats' nose to the grindstone and made them live up to the policy that was written into the Constitution, which said every 10 years you will have an accurate count of how many people live in the United States, a head count, not any averaging or guesstimations or anything else. So that's the name of that tune. So, but I've got 3 notices now, or I've got 2 notices in the census form itself. So
I must really be breaking the law because I haven't gotten mine yet.
you haven't got the big one yet, huh?
No, all I've gotten was the postcard, the little one. I thought the first one was the census, and I started figuring out till I couldn't find any boxes to check off. So then I read it and realized it wasn't.
You know, when I got that long one, this envelope, I thought this was the census too. And
That's what I thought.
Let it sit there, and then the big one came, and then this little one. Now, some people are getting a giant one with 20 or 30 pages of stuff they got to fill out.
Oh, really?
And a lot of people are balking on filling that one out because it's pretty intrusive. Wants to know what kind of plumbing you got in your house. All kinds of questions. Well, we'll be taking live calls tonight, and according to old Roy Rogers Hoff, the pyrotechnical engineer, who's been with us now for what, Roy, 20, 25 years? Here Roy's running for a county board this time around. He thinks he's got a good chance, and he's kind of keeping it under close to his vest what kind of campaign he's running, but I hear it's a very, very effective campaign, and he's running to win this time. All right, so we'll take our first call. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yes, Mr. Lee, I'm calling because I need some help with your political poll here in the Eau Claire area. I just came back from Brazil doing my internship, and I was very disheartened to learn that I was not able to bring my pet monkey, which I acquired in Rio de Janeiro, back to the United States due to the CDC claiming that it was a health hazard. Now, I've already spoken with Senator Zine. Is there anything I can do to help change the minds here? It's imperative I get this monkey back.
Well, what does Zine tell you?
Well, he said he would look into it and that it really wasn't his specialty and that I may have to go to someone with a little more authority in a federal government more so than the local.
So they're saying that the monkey might have some diseases that would infect other monkeys in this country, or possibly humans, or what's the deal?
Yes, possibly both, but now I've had it, the monkey checked. It has been checked. It is well bred. It is well taken care of, and there seems to be no outbreak effect. Also, I do have a zookeeper's license in order to bring the monkey here, and I'm not certain as to what legal procedures I can take to get this, excuse me, I'm sorry, to get my monkey back.
Well, I'll tell you what, I don't think there is any legal procedures, but I'll tell you what you can do. What you need to do is go back down to Brazil and rent a car and drive it up to the Mexican border, and then drive across down there in Texas or New Mexico or Arizona. Just drive across any one of those places there, because it's open season on crossing the border. Now anybody can come in. Just put the monkey in the trunk until you get across the border. They're bringing in tons of drugs and hundreds of thousands of illegal aliens, and they're packing nuclear weapons and everything else across the border. Just do it that way.
That sounds really good. Do you have any specific route that you know of? Because I'm on my last end here.
Well, south of Tucson, Arizona, there's a pretty good crossing there that used to be used back in the 60s and 70s. There's some mountains down there that you can find some local old miners and stuff that'll show you the way through the mountains.
Okay, I thank you for your time.
All right.
Boo-baloo.
Okay.
You could have told him you were Tarzan. That was a pet chimp.
Yeah. Well, you know, a lot of people have pets like that down in Mexico and
Yes, they do.
in Costa Rica and them countries down there. That's a pretty big deal down there. All right, so we took care of the census, and we took care of the murder. That's been solved. We're still working on the other murder here in Eau Claire County. It's been going on a month now, and they haven't solved that one yet. It seems like they've just that whole thing has just been quieted down and dried up, and there hasn't been anything new said on that for several weeks. If you want to go to cowreport.com on the internet, you can see a picture of the girl. I've got it right there on the front page, and there's an article that was in All Points Bulletin. It's another internet site that you can go to and read the original story. And below that, I have 3 pictures of a capital punishment down in Florida. The electric chair, Old Sparky down there.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a 3-judge panel down there that were going to decide whether the electric chair there in Florida was cruel and unusual punishment. So the 3 panel judges, the 2 judges voted to continue to use Sparky.
Mm-hmm.
And 1 judge voted, in the dissenting, voted in the minority to get rid of it, saying it's cruel and unusual. So what he did was he attached 3 pictures of an actual execution. Those are very hard to come by, because they're not allowed to take pictures of an execution. They're not allowed to film one. Reporters will write about it, but it's against the law for you to take a camera in there. But these are official state of Florida pictures of a guy that was executed July or August of 1999, and it shows how gruesome the execution of Old Sparky was. The first photograph, they strap a big leather strap across your face, and really tight, and it's up against your nostrils so you can hardly breathe. And so this guy, he profusely bled through his nose down on this leather pad and then onto his white shirt. And there's a picture of that. They put a sponge on your head, and then they put some kind of electrode on top of your head. They put another electrode on your leg, so they have to shave one of your legs, and they cut your pant leg off. And so that's one of the pictures. And then the third picture is basically after his death. It just shows him sitting in the chair with burns on him, and he's kind of still blue. And it isn't the fake pictures. There's 3 pictures where you can click on them and you can read the whole story. Also, you can read the dissenting judge's comments on why he thinks that the electric chair in Florida was cruel and unusual. But they've used it several times since then. But the reason they were ruling on that was because 2 or 3 foot flames are shooting out of these guys' heads when they're being electrocuted down there. And so they were saying it was getting cruel and unusual. But this, the reason he attached these photographs is because this guy bled, and they were suffocating him. He couldn't breathe before they pulled pulled the lever on him, and so it was a pretty nasty execution. But you can see it there in living color right there on CowReport.com. Also, you can see a picture of the girl that's been murdered in Eau Claire a couple weeks ago and her body dumped on a street corner. So we've had a lot of crime in the area here in the last couple of months.
A lot of crime.
All of a sudden, we got a little mini crime wave going, and so the cops are really running ragged to clean it up. And actually, they're having to work for a change. You know it?
Yeah.
They're not writing tickets. They're really having to use the old noodle there. All right, so that takes care of that. All right, what do you got there? You got something about a land grab going on out west?
Yes, I have. It seems that not only does Mr. Clinton want to take away our firearms and take away a bunch of our freedoms, now he wants to take away our land. He's, with a stroke of a pen, President Clinton last month created 3 new national monuments and expanded a 4th, adding another 88 million acres to the federal holdings in the West, where most property is already under federal or state ownership. I know a few months ago, a lot of the ranchers out west were up in arms over losing their grazing rights. Now, I would have to venture a guess that if this keeps on and they keep losing more of their grazing rights, in time that'll drive the price of beef up at our end of it, because it's going to add cost to raising beef if they have to bring in feed and so on and so forth. So,
Well, the environmentalist wackos, they've been pushing for this, for the two-pronged attack. They want to raise the grazing fees,
yep,
and the other one is they want to continue to do these land grabs like Clinton's doing there, 88 million acres. Now, that's one heck of a land grab there, taking that much land out of private ownership and putting it in the federal government. All that does is that takes away states' rights. Before you know it,
Right.
some of these states ain't going to have a state left because it's all going to be owned by the federal government.
well, these tree huggers are about as bad as these idiots from PETA that are telling everybody, drink beer, not milk, because they're afraid it's hurting the cow to take the milk from the cow. And, I mean, they're utterly ridiculous.
Well, I got a story for them, something else they can talk about besides a few cows that got milked. You know, cows get milked twice a day, don't they?
Right,
7 days a week, 365 days a year.
right.
The old farmer and his family has to go out there. You know, you never see a milk cow farmer hanging around town much because he's got
Too
milk
busy
morning,
milking cows.
milk morning and night, and the bigger the herd, the longer it takes.
Yep.
And so you know where they're at 7 days a week. They don't get many vacations. They're always on the farm working. But speaking about cruelty to animals, now this ties right in with the Old and New Testament. In the Old Testament, hundreds and hundreds of millions of animals were slaughtered over the centuries by the Jewish religion. Every year they would slaughter animals to atone for their sins. And that would cause their sins to be forgiven then for a year. So 12 months later, they'd have to do it all over again. So millions upon millions of animals are slaughtered year after year after year up until pretty much the dissolution of Jerusalem and Israel was broken up, and the Jews are scattered all over the world, and then slowly now they're coming back into Israel the last 50 years into their homeland, and supposedly they're going to start sacrificing again real quick.
Oh, really?
But they had to,
Start with Clinton.
before they could start sacrificing again, they had to find a pure red heifer with no spot or scratch or any deformities at all. It had to be a perfect red heifer, because in Jewish law you have to have a red heifer to sacrifice, or the priests do. And so what they do is they have some ashes somewhere. There's ashes somewhere from the last red heifer that was sacrificed several thousand years ago, hundreds of years ago, probably thousands of years ago. And so they'll mix the new ashes from this new heifer with the ashes of the old heifer, that one from the final sacrifice many years ago, so they can continue the tradition. But the Muslims also worship parts of the Old Testament and New Testament. They consider Mary a virtuous woman. They consider Jesus a great prophet. They don't consider him God, but they consider him one of the great prophets. And they believe in most of the Old Testament. But the Muslims just got done sacrificing 600,000 animals during their Hajj. More than 637,000 sheep, cattle, and camels were slaughtered for Muslim pilgrims during the annual Hajj pilgrimage, which ended on Saturdays. in Saudi Arabia. The official Saudi press said the animals were slaughtered by the Islamic Development Bank on behalf of the pilgrims. It quoted IDB President Ahmed Muhammad Ali as saying the meat, packed and refrigerated, would be distributed to refugees and needy people in 27 countries. The Hajj culminates with Eid al-Adha, Feast of Sacrifice. Muslims have a religious duty to offer sacrifices during the pilgrimage, and hundreds of thousands of animals, mostly sheep, are slaughtered each year and the meat donated to the needy. Some pilgrims buy livestock directly and slaughter it themselves. Now, if you remember, Passover, remember the blood they put on the doorposts?
Mm-hmm.
And that was a sign too. But the Christians, we don't have to slaughter anymore, because Jesus was the final perfect sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
When he was put on the cross, he was a sacrifice, and he before he died, he said, "It is finished." So you don't have to slaughter anymore. But the Old Testament worshipers, the Muslims and the Jews, the Muslims are still doing it now, and the Jews are getting ready to start doing sacrifices again. I'm sure they already are sacrificing some places. But now, if PETA wants to get a hold of somebody, that's quite a few animals. 600,000 wiped out in one week here.
Them idiots from PETA would have a heyday.
And they're too busy letting mink out of the mink farms and letting cattle out of their fences and stuff.
Well, they could have a bottle of beer in one hand, and they could run all over yelling, "Don't hurt those animals."
A milk cow was invented to milk.
Exactly.
Otherwise, it wouldn't give milk twice a day.
That's right.
And out of that milk comes butter, and cottage cheese, and milk, and sour cream, and
Things that
all
PETA
kinds of
probably
good
eat.
things.
PETA people would probably eat that stuff.
Yeah, and they probably wear leather shoes and leather belts too.
Yeah, and some of them.
Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, this is Ben calling. I just want to say I love the show. And I was wondering if the truth is tonight, but apparently he's back in the home. And I was just wondering where you get those bumper stickers. I love animals; they're delicious.
Well, you know, there's an address on here, and this one's about 10 years old and it's been around the block. It's my last one, but for bumper stickers, contact Dan Hansen, P.O. Box 291, Sparks, Nevada, 89431. That's Dan Hansen, Hansen, P.O. Box 291, Sparks, Nevada.
Well, thanks a lot. I just turned in. What was the topic you were talking about? The tree huggers?
Well, Dwayne was talking about how the Clinton just grabbed 88 million acres out west, and he's trying to tie up some grazing land and stuff, making it harder on the cattle ranchers and horse ranchers and stuff out west, and the sheep grazers, and he's just making it hard, and he's doing these big land grabs out there, and it's not the federal government's job to go out and grab 88 million acres in one shot.
Yeah, it's kind of a bunch of bullshit.
It sure is. Well, thanks for calling in. But you know, the 50 states or 50 nations that conglomerate together. I have to say this every couple shows or every show. It's a thing about states' rights.
Yep.
And the president comes in there meddling, comes bullying into a state and said, "Oh, we want 20 million acres here, and we'll go over there to Nevada and we'll take 50 million acres there, and we'll go down to New Mexico and take 20 million acres." That isn't the federal government's job.
No, it isn't.
Federal government has the District of Columbia, a few forts that they had, like back at the turn of the century, during the Indian Wars and stuff. They had a few forts scattered around the country. They have some jurisdiction on the Mississippi River and some of the other rivers. And when crimes where they cross state lines. Other than that, states have states' rights. That's why we got our governor is like the president of the United States, and it's an equality thing there. President, governor. Legislature in the state of Wisconsin, legislature in Washington. They're separate governments. And the Constitution gives the states certain rights. And when a land-grabbing left-wing radical like Clinton comes out west and grabs 88 million acres, I just hope to heck that our governor from Texas will roll that back when he gets into office.
I hope so too.
You don't need 88 million acres to set up some kind of little monument out
No,
there.
you don't.
You need about 1 acre.
Of course, one thing, as long as Clinton is out there grabbing our guns and grabbing the land, he's not grabbing the women.
That's for sure. Of course, he's over there in India now, and I guess you can have 3 wives over there. He's probably really,
He'd love that.
getting excited over there. And Hillary's back in Washington talking about drugs. We got
Yeah.
an article on that. Okay, go ahead, caller. You're on air.
Hi, Chuck. How are you?
All right, how you doing?
Not bad. Yeah, I got a question for you here. I heard you talking about like the illegal aliens fleeing in and all that stuff coming into the country and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering, you know, with like probably like a high rise with that happening to us, do you think that has the cause for the constant increase in the gas prices?
The more aliens coming in?
Yeah. What's your input on that?
Well, where would the correlation be between the two there?
Well, I was just thinking that with the more that came in, that the higher that some way around it's got to be that's why the increase has got to be, because you just for some weird reason that's how it all works out. It seems to be.
Well, Dwayne has been studying this situation here in Eau Claire, and I'll ask him what he thinks about that. Are illegal aliens because of gas prices going up?
No. The cause of gas prices going up is too few people controlling the majority of the product. And the fact that why, when we've got all this nice oil up in Alaska, oil that would probably last us for the next 100 years or so, why are we giving it to our buddies in Japan so that they can have cheap petroleum products, so that they can build factories over there and take jobs away from America? And then we buy oil from the Middle East, and then when they want to cut back production, the OPEC nations, then bang, bang, boom, we're paying higher price at the gas pump.
And to top it off, that pipeline in Alaska is only running at 50% capacity.
Right.
They could double production coming out of Alaska and get that down here, and it would just put it would knock the heck out of prices. They'd be down below $1 in a couple months.
Yeah, a few years ago, we were putting crude oil onto ships headed for Japan. And in return, we were getting chopsticks.
What it is a big con. It's a big con deal between Clinton and Gore. Gore needs about $50 million to win this election, so he's running up the price of oil because he's got speculators all over the country that bought up shares of all the different gas companies, and they own drilling rights in different places. So now they'll scare the hell out of the American people, and they'll open up some of these drilling places, and Clinton and his buddies will get rich off that. It's just a Ponzi scheme. You got to follow the money. It's a con.
Right. So what you're saying is that the oil lines were a lot bigger in Alaska, that we'd be better off. We wouldn't have this big of a problem.
No, the oil lines we already have in place are only running at 50% capacity. They could double the amount of oil that's pumped and pump it and get it through the pipeline down to the vessels that are waiting to load it, and get it to the refineries and get it to the gas stations in this country. They're only running at 50% capacity. Plus, they have capped hundreds of thousands of wells all over this country, especially in Texas, Louisiana,
Yep.
Illinois, all the major states in the nation where there's a lot of oil exploration. They said the excuse was because the price of oil was too low, so they capped thousands upon thousands of wells. They found the oil, but the big companies like Mobil and Shell and all them capped it, which means they know where it's at, but they just put a cap on the shaft that they drilled, and it's just sitting there waiting. So now the price is up over $30. Some of the caps will start coming off that stuff. But see, they want to keep that price up there because that's how the oil companies make money. They make it off selling the crude and off the refining and off the shipping of it around the world. And so we're probably going to see this for a while now. It's a trickle-down effect. It's going to trickle down everything in the economy because it takes trucks to move the food to the grocery stores, and it takes, we use a heck of a lot of trucks. The independent truckers right now are hurting really big time because the price of oil is too high for them. The United States, to have a booming, robust economy, needs cheap fuel. And there's no reason why we can't have cheap fuel. It's like somebody said all of a sudden, we're going to put the brakes on this robust economy. We're just going to knock the hell out of it one way or the other. We're going to slow it down. And now I think they've done it. Now you see the stock market going up 500 points and down 200 points and up 100 points. Stock market people don't know what to think because they don't know what's going on, but they know that in about 6 months' time, this is going to trickle down into the economy, and it's going to cause that old dangerous thing called inflation to rear its head again. We're going to see this inflation thing climb again. And the Clintons could be doing it, Clinton Gore could be doing it because maybe they think that Bush is going to win, so they're going to wreck the economy and deliver to Bush a recession so that they can use that for political gains later on. But a lot of this stuff that happens behind the scenes is political.
Yeah.
And,
Well, maybe I'll keep gassing with the truck that bring a lot of those aliens over in the first place, huh?
well, actually, you'd think that would cut down because the truckers can't get them up here
Right.
because they can't afford the higher prices. But usually, like with anything else, they pass it on down to the consumer and they just raise the price that they charge the illegal aliens to get them up to Minneapolis, where there's 150,000. There was an article in the paper, in Minneapolis St. Paul paper last week. There's 150,000 that they know of in Minneapolis St. Paul now. And a lot of them are just running around without any papers at all or with fake IDs. But nobody seems to care.
There may be a question you want to ask a politician sometime. Ask them this. How can it be back in the 20s and 30s when the Middle East was basically still a barbaric land and our oil well men or oil people went over there, they did the exploration at their own expense, they built the wells, they built the refineries, they got it all set up for them. And then all of a sudden, back in 1973, they embargo our oil simply because they went and nationalized American companies, and the United States taxpayers repaid these oil companies for the land that was taken away from them over in Saudi Arabia and other nations. And now they're doing it to us again. Now, why are we allowing them to do that? Taking our property, which is in their country, because we developed it. Why are they allowing those countries to do that?
I know it's a big thing. That's why we fought Desert Storm, was over oil.
Right.
Pure and simple. The reason
Right.
is because about 25% of the world's oil was tied up between Kuwait, Iran, and Iraq.
Exactly.
It's a firestorm right there. What do you think the Russians have killed 30,000 Chechens for? It's over oil.
Oil.
There's several pipelines that run right through Chechnya, and there's also a lot of oil in Chechnya. That's why the Russians are killing the Chech, trying to wipe out that whole nation. Oil is big, and British Petroleum, some of them companies those multinationals are really big, and they control a large part of the world economy. Well, on this date in history, you know what happened today?
No.
Right here in the
First day of spring.
Right here in the old state of Wisconsin, 1854. Yeah, it's the first day of spring too. 1854, the Republican Party was founded on this day.
In Ripon, Wisconsin.
In Ripon, Wisconsin, former members of the Whig political party meet to establish a new political party that would oppose the spread of slavery into the Western territories. With the successful introduction of the Kansas-Nebraska bill, enacted to solve the terms of the Missouri Compromise and allow slave or free status to be decided in the territories by popular sovereignty. The Whig Party, which could not adequately cope with the issue of slavery, disintegrated, much like the Republican Party is disintegrating right now.
Right.
By February of 1854, anti-slavery factions of the former Whig Party had begun meeting in the upper Midwestern states to discuss the formation of a new party. One such meeting at Ripon, Wisconsin on March 20th, 1854 is generally remembered as the founding meeting of the Republican Party. So there you have it. Started right here in Wisconsin.
Yep.
All right, we'll take a call here. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, I turned on the TV here and I saw you talking about fake IDs. And I was just wondering what you thought about the young kids these days. I'm 23 and I go to the bar and I see them getting in trouble and all that kind of stuff. What do you think you can do about that?
Well, down there on Water Street, there's a lot of money in selling booze to illegal underage kids. And a lot of money's made down there, and seems like everyone just kind of nods and winks, and everyone's got fake IDs, and nobody really does something about it. Once in a while, the cops will have their little show raid down there and bust a few people and slap a few kids on the hands on the wrist, but it's part of the economy down in Water Street and the bars down in that area, and so they kind of just wink about it and pay their taxes, and the cops get their revenue from busting all the kids down there. Water Street's notorious for having speed traps all over the place there on Water Street. You can hardly run the gauntlet down there without one of them giving you the evil eye there that they're going to stop you for speeding, even if you're going 20 miles an hour. They just make those cops, some of them cops go from private to sergeant in a couple of months down there working that Water Street beat, writing tickets. They really climb the ladder quick. Of course, now it's against the law for them to do that.
Really?
Yeah, down in Madison, they passed a law that they can't just write tickets to climb the ladder like that. But there is people that make fake IDs. A lot of kids at the college have them. Most college kids are 18, 19, 20, and they want to get into them bars and drink, and they're at these after-hour parties. You know, if they're at a kegger drinking, that's just as illegal as sitting down there at one of the bars and having your buddy go up to the bar and buy a pitcher of beer and bring it back, and then you drink it. It's still all illegal, but it's just something that everyone looks the other way, pretty much. You used to hang around down there. Did you do that
Yeah, you bet I did.
when you were younger?
Sure. I wasn't no different than the other kid, even the kids today. But what troubles me a lot, and I'm sure it does a lot of kids too, you can go die for your country at 18. You can own a bar at 18, but you can't drink in it. Why don't they make it 18? They'd solve a lot of this problems. You know, I mean, I've seen just as many drunks 60, 70 years old as I've seen 18, 19-year-olds. So I mean, it's why don't they just make it 18? Solve a lot of the problems.
I think some states do have it at 18.
Yes, they used to have it 18, and somebody came along and said, oh, we got to have it 21 again. But yet still they can sign up for the draft at 18 so they can go fight and die for their country. They can own a bar at 18, but they can't drink in it. Or they can get married at 18 and go to have their wedding dance at a bar, but they can't drink at their own wedding legally.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of ludicrous, don't you think?
Well, there is some pros and cons to that issue.
Yes, there is.
All right, well, you know what else happened on this date?
No.
Back in 1976, you probably remember this, Patty Hearst,
Oh, yes.
convicted of robbery for her part in the Symbionese Liberation Army's spree that they went on out there in 74, 75. And of course, most of them ended up in a fiery shootout. The Los Angeles police set the building on fire,
Yes.
burned most of the people to death that were in this Symbionese Liberation Army. Let's see, on May 17th, Los Angeles police raided the SLA secret headquarters, killing 6 of the group's 9 known members. Among the dead was the SLA's leader, Donald DeFreeze, who called himself General Field Marshal Sink. Patty Hearst and 2 other SLA members wanted for the April 15th bank robbery were not on the premises. Finally, on September 18, 1975, Hearst was captured in a San Francisco apartment and arrested for armed robbery. She was convicted in 1974 and sentenced to 7 years in prison. May 9th, 1977, she was released on probation and returned to a more routine existence. And now she's kind of got a little movie career going.
Mhm.
She's been in a couple of movies. Serial Mom, I think she was in that movie, and a couple others. But and of course, she's from the famous Hearst family that owns newspapers out in California. I think the San Francisco Chronicle. But it was kind of a toss-up whether she was being brainwashed or she was actually working with them. But when she was arrested, when she was captured that first day, though, she was definitely a high society girl. Didn't want nothing to do with these lowlifes. But as the longer she stayed in captivity, I guess her thoughts changed a little bit.
Now, there's a lot of people today that still believe that she was made to rob that bank with that photo of her standing there holding a gun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that supposedly there was an empty gun, and there was a guy standing off camera there with a machine gun pointed at her.
Yep.
Well, also on this date, 1995, the poisonous gas attack on the Tokyo subway happened, where they put that sarin gas into the subway there and killed several people, and that they're still having trouble with that sect over there, the Aum sect, I think it is. Well, we got another call, so go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, I'm calling about the gas prices. I heard a rumor of a gas out. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I heard something on the radio about that for 2 days coming up, February 3rd or 4th or 6th and 7th or something like that. I guess what the theory is the gas stations have to sell so much gas a day and the refineries have to refine so much. So if everybody stops buying it for a day or two, it throws a wrench into production and everything else and causes a price fluctuation. Maybe it'll work, but the main thing is I think you just have to put pressure on the politicians and call your congressmen and your senators and say, hey, we know that this is all a bunch of political baloney and campaigning for the presidency and stuff, and we want it stopped. We want them dollar a gallon gas prices again, like we used to have. They could sell gas for 30 cents a gallon in this country if they wanted to. Matter of fact, some states down south, gas does get down 50, 60 cents a gallon at certain times of the year if you're near a refinery, or I don't know how it works, but up here in where we're at, gas has always been expensive. Eau Claire on up to Superior, for some reason we're just in a little corridor there where either one company owns all the gas stations, or something's going on, there's price fixing or whatever, but the prices always stay high in this area no matter what happens around the country. So go ahead and go with it. I don't know exactly what day it is, but personally I just try to buy less gas. If everyone drives a little bit less, all of a sudden they'll start having an oversupply of gas, and then the price will come down naturally. It's a matter of supply and demand. Well, you know, them doggone Chinese are rattling their sabers again.
Are they really?
You know, over the weekend, Taiwan elected a new president. For the first time in 50 years, a new party took over in Taiwan. And the leader of this new party says he wants independence from China. They don't want to be part of communist China. They want to be a free country. That's why they broke away and moved from Red China in 1949, moved to Formosa, and they created their own country called the Republic of China. And the communist China was called the People's Republic of China. They're two separate countries. Well, today, China issues a new threat against the United States. Any talks between China and Taiwan must have unification as their premise, Chinese President Jiang Zemin demanded Monday. Just as a Chinese military newspaper issued harsh and specific threats about the military consequences if Taipei, which is Taiwan, fails to meet China's timetable. So in other words, China's going to say to Taiwan, you got this many months for you to fall in line and become part of Red China again. Just like Hong Kong and Macau and some of these other countries, small enclaves over there, they're trying to do the same thing with Taiwan now. And Knight Ridder circuits are first with details of the Chinese paper that hinted at the use of nuclear weapons, predicting that the United States, if forced to choose between 20 million Taiwanese and 200 million Americans, would withdraw from Taiwan's defense. Clinton administration officials are headed to both capitals to try and calm things down. The late developments cancel optimism about peaceful talks proposed by Taiwan's newly elected leader, Chen Shui-bian. This comes from the Drudge Report tonight about 6 o'clock. So China's saying, if we move against Taiwan, America's going to have to decide whether to protect the 20 million Taiwanese or lose 200 million Americans to nuclear warfare. So China is basically saying to us, we have enough nuclear weapons that we can wipe out about 75% of your country, the population. So sounds like a threat to me.
It does to me too.
What do you think? They're going to do? I know Bush and McCain and Gore and all of them are scared to death of China. They've already said that they're not going to let Taiwan be a free nation. It's going to have to join back with China, with communist China.
Well, I'm sure they'll figure out something diplomatic to do. They'll probably say, okay, you can go back with China, but you got to keep the free enterprise system that Taiwan has established. And Bill Clinton will be there with his hand out to the Chinese for some more political contributions.
That's for sure. He knows how to talk Chinese in.
You better believe it.
He knows how to move them chopsticks around then to get that
You
money.
bet he does.
He can eat the rice real quick then when that money's flowing.
You better
Go to
believe
the
it.
Buddhist temples and get all these guys
Oh, yeah.
moving through the
Yeah.
White House with bushel baskets and briefcases full of cash,
Let them stay in the Lincoln bedroom for a night or
Yeah.
two.
and slip a few secrets to the Chinese on the
Oh,
sly.
yeah,
A little nod and
yeah.
a wink. Here, we'll give you this secret. You give us $1 million to help us get Gore elected.
Yep,
The same stuff starting all over again. I
Yes,
bet you
it is.
anything they're going to do the same thing.
I'm sure they will.
Clinton is demanding now that China gets this most favored nation status, or this fair trade status. Clinton is really pushing for that right now, and that's kind of part of the payback, and that he's playing with these communist leaders over there. I'll do so much for you, and you do so much for me, and back and forth, and it's all part of a payback scheme for all the money that's shoveled into the Democratic Party. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Hey, Chuck, what's up?
Not too much. What's happening out there in TV land?
Oh, not much. I'm just chilling, watching your show here. Having a good time with her.
All right. What's
Yeah,
up?
I'd have to agree with your sidekick there on the drinking age, I mean, you seem like the kind of guy that likes to throw a couple back, once in a while.
Actually, I gave it up back in 1986.
Oh, yeah? Why'd you give her up in 86?
Just too many parties.
You're a big partier, huh, Chuck?
Back then I was.
You're a booze hound or what?
I drank a few.
Oh, that's, so you think it should be 18 or 21 or what, Chuck?
I don't know. There's a controversy about it. Some people say that you're not mature at 18. Other people say, well, I can go die for my country, so why can't I drink? Well, a heroin addict could say the same thing. I can go die for my country, so why can't I have heroin? So there's a lot of pros and cons to it. People aren't really mature at 18, but military-wise, they know how to pull a trigger. So, I don't know how it got tied in with this military thing to begin with. Booze is another drug. It's a legal drug like cigarettes, but it causes, the prison. We had a dark picture here for a while. What's going on out there? All right.
Incapable hands.
Okay, Detroit, Oregon. A hunter thought he had found a severed human head in an abandoned mining shed and called the police. Deputy Larry Taylor realized it was just the head of a mannequin when he noticed a price sticker on the forehead. Well, hopefully we're still on the air there. Caller, are you up? Are you on there?
Yeah,
Have you
I
got-
got a question. Who do you like in the city council race coming up?
Have you got a picture out there? Have you had a
We do.
Have you had a picture on the screen all the time?
Yeah, we do. Looking good, Chuck.
All right. Well, we got to watch these guys here at the station. Sometimes they sneak up on the roof there and start doing some stuff up there. We don't know what they're doing. We got to keep them on their toes around here. We used to have a guy that worked down at the library many years ago. Sneak out and smoke a few joints. You could smell the marijuana all over the place when he was done. And the show was always screwed up when that guy was around. The cameras were screwed up, or something wasn't plugged in right, or something was upside down. And he was just partying away, puffing away for the pot there.
Yeah, these stupid kids these days.
Yeah. So city council. Well, I'll tell you, anybody but my alcoholic.
What do you think if Larry Wright rear in?
My alcohol.
Larry Wright, he's down the twos, but I do like that Terry Stanley. She talks about being a little more conservative, and she's looked at the budget. She said there's a lot of fat in that city budget that could be cut out and made a little bit leaner. I like what she says. She was on city council before, and I think she needs to get back on there again. And Dennis Barry's not bad. And that's about the only two I'm excited about. How about you, Dwayne?
Well, have you ever been known, like, you're going off the hard on that one camera guy, but about smoking a little joint, but I don't know. Have you ever been known to do that kind of stuff?
Not me. I haven't smoked for 20 years.
20 years. Why'd you give it up?
Just one too many parties.
I don't know, man. It's still nice to go out and have a little party every once in a while.
Well, back 20 years ago, things were a little different in this country. You could smoke with your friends and stuff, and you wouldn't have to worry about getting sentenced to 9 years in jail. A kid just a couple days ago here in Eau Claire County got a 9-year sentence for marijuana. Now, that seems barbaric and ridiculous in this day and age that a 20-some-year-old kid, his whole life's ruined now. He's going to spend 4 or 5 years in jail before he gets out over a little bit of marijuana because the cops can't go out, the cops don't know how to bust the hardcore drugs, the amphetamines and the cocaine and stuff. So they keep busting these kids for marijuana over and over again. Before you know it, you got 2 or 3 busts under your belt, you're a convicted felon, you can't get a job, your life's screwed for the rest of your life. All over marijuana. While the amphetamine producers and the heroin dealers and the cocaine dealers and the big shots, they're hobnobbing at the parties with these politicos and lawyers and doctors and stuff, snorting cocaine and stuff. Well, the cops are going out busting these little kids for marijuana, and then every once in a while having their show trials and their big shows on TV when they show all the marijuana they busted.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
It is pretty ridiculous.
And they need to have something better to do. What do you think about that, Dwayne?
Well, I have to agree with you there as far as, the one thing I don't understand though is a lot of times when you do arrest someone for running cocaine or marijuana or whatever, they arrest the object, their automobile, or they arrest their house. Well, I want to know, how can you arrest an inanimate object? Because according to Miranda rights, you have to understand your rights when you're being arrested. Well, how can a house or a car understand its rights? So how can you arrest them and take all this property from people, even people that are probably innocent? Because I've heard of several cases where innocent people got tied up some way with it and were arrested and sentenced away because of mandatory drug laws they have in this country now. And they lost their cars, their houses, their property. And in the meantime, the counties and different law enforcement agencies were enjoying fancy cars. Like, for example, a few years back, a guy left a brand new yellow Corvette. And the car was supposed to have been put up on the auction block and sold at public auction to help offset the cost of the trial net. And they come to find out that the district attorney of Denver was driving around this fancy yellow Corvette. And the citizens were paying for the gas and the insurance and whatnot. So, I mean, a lot of that's got out of hand. And
It's kind of like these guns that the police departments recycle back into the
yeah,
gun
selling
shows.
back to you're right. And then the criminal buys that they found 2 guns used in Columbine were ex-police guns.
Yeah, those
So-
came right from the Denver Police Department.
Yeah, but at the same time, there's
2 murder weapons at Columbine.
Yeah, at the same time, you got Bill Clinton and his band of Clintonites running around wanting to pass new laws on the books, but yet they won't enforce any of the laws that are already on the books because they might offend somebody.
Well, what I can't figure out is why we as a society keep allowing this to happen over the marijuana issue. Sure, there should be some kind of a law against it because just because there is some scientific problems with it. But when you compare it to alcohol and cigarettes, you should be outlawing alcohol and cigarettes.
Right.
Compared to the damage done physically. And what we're doing is we're destroying the whole generation we have now. For about the last 3 generations, we've destroyed a certain segment of our society by busting a bunch of people for marijuana, some of them 2 or 3 times, loading them up with all these sentences, and their life is ruined for the rest of their life.
Right.
There's nowhere for them to go. The state of Wisconsin now, you can't, the state of Wisconsin, if you're an ex-convict or a felon, if you've done your time in the state, when you come back out on the streets, all you can do is go to work at a car wash or be a cook. You're at the lowest rung level for the rest of your life. You can't run for office. You can't do a lot of things. And a lot of there is no jail problem in this nation.
No.
I've been studying the prison system now for several months, and we got 2 million people locked up in this country right now, and a lot of them are in there for marijuana and other drug charges. And a lot of those people, there's a lot of people in prison that could just as easily be with a bracelet on their ankle,
Exactly.
walking around the streets paying taxes instead of our tax dollars going $30,000, $40,000 a year for them to sit in the cell and waste away. But once somebody's done their time and they've paid their price into society, they should ease up on it a little bit so they can ease back into society and do something else besides go back out and go to dealing drugs again and stuff. But there's such hard asses down in Madison anymore on these drugs and stuff, and all they're doing is busting, they're busting everybody but their own kids.
Right.
They nod and wink, and, oh, you can't bust my kid.
Oh, no.
Go down the street and bust some black kids down in the black neighborhood, some Mexican kids and stuff. Don't be busting my kids for having a pot party, and don't go down and bust the lawyers and them judges and doctors down there at that party on Saturday night where they're snorting the white powder on
Don't do that.
on the crystal table there. Go into the ghettos and bust those people and keep busting them over and over again to the point where I think something like 15% of the black men in this country can't even vote.
Exactly.
They're all ex-felons or they're in prison. That's taking the right to vote back away from them again. They might as well be back on the plantations. We've got a 2 million man plantation system set up in this country right now with our prison system, with the gulags. We got more people in prison in this country than Russia does.
I know.
And It's ridiculous.
It's all because of the mandatory laws they passed a few years ago on the federal government
If
list.
they want to empty out the prisons, get the people out of there from minor marijuana and other drug charges, get them out and get them back in society and being productive, and they'll free up thousands of cells all over the country
Well, remember, when
for
they
the
put-
murderers and the serial rapists.
exactly, when they put someone using a ounce of
room for
marijuana
Clinton.
in prison, they're letting some killer out.
Make room for Clinton, he's a serial rapist.
No, right.
Okay, we got time for one more call. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, you guys are pretty familiar with the politics of this nation, I would guess, right?
Yeah.
Okay, back before Clinton was president, we had several presidents who were of the political party of the Federalists. Do you think in the Federalist era, when they had the laissez-faire economy deal going on, do you think that would work now? In like, now that we have a lot of government regulations regulating trade and all that, do you think a Federalist government would work now as a fourth party?
As a fourth party?
Yeah, because, well, you got your wacko Democrats and your moderate Republicans and reform morons. How about the Federalist Party? I mean, they could really make some money there.
Yeah, you'd have to come up with a platform of what you stand for, what if you're for free trade or what.
Well, the Federalist platform is the nation as a federalist king. You know, the states stick together, and the government has the power of the states. Whereas all these other governments that we've had, you know, like the Republican and the Democrat, we've had all these other things. But I think it's time for our nation to try the Federalist platform, where you believe that our nation is our nation, and the states should fall in line. None of this states doing the government, you know, all that BS. Where it's all these
No, we don't need any more centralized, federalized. They tried that in Russia for 70 years, it didn't work. We don't want any of that centralized baloney. That's the problem in this country now. The federal government's sticking their nose in everything. They got agents running all over the place. They need to ship all their agents back to Washington and fire them all. They need to close down the Department of Education and half of all their federal programs, cut the budget in half right now, and then from there whittle it down 10% a year, and change things. All right, well, it looks like it's that time again. Hello?
Doc, you're fat.
All right, so
I'm idiot.
we don't need any more federal government. We got too much federal government now. We need to have less government, less intrusion in our lives. We need to have, we're in the state of Wisconsin, in the nation of Wisconsin. We've got our own president/governor. So thank you very much, and we'll see you right here next time on the Old Car Report. I've been your host, Chuck Lee. With me has been my Eau Claire political analyst, Dwayne Peterson. We'll see you right here next time. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Adios, amigos, and amiguettes.